Hello, my name is Olivia Flynn. I'm a third year nursing student with Ontario Tech University, and today, in collaboration with the Mental Health in the Digital Age Lab, I am honored to be presenting a special World Mental Health Day project. Here we are. It's titled Beyond the Screen: Social Media's Influence on Mental and Physical Well-Being. So, let's get started. I've started with a general and simple question. How does social media make you feel most of the time? As everyone's on social media quite frequently or just anywhere in a technological space, I think it's important to reflect on how is social media making you feel more times than not. Are you leaving feeling happy? Are you sad? Are you anxious? Are you excited? I think it's important to reflect because especially how prominent it is in our day and age, how more times than not are you feeling after spending time online? So I've included the benefits and burdens of social media. For positives, we have connection, self-expression, support networks, mental health advocacy, and it's fun. Negatives include comparisons, cyberbullying, misinformation, addiction, fear of missing out. So just like there is with everything, there's good and bad aspects of social media usage. Um, I think it's nice to see it put out because you can't have one without the other. So it's always good to be aware of what you might be subjected to when you are online. The physiology behind the scroll. So this is going deeper into how does social media affect brain chemicals. Um, when you are online, it is a physical and mental tool that you are experiencing in your body because you are subjecting your body to so much new information that your brain then needs to process. So, with that in mind, why is social media so addictive? Humans are naturally social creatures with an evolved biological need for connection. Positive reinforcement from likes on social media triggers dopamine reward cycles that release a neurotransmitter called dopamine. Dopamine influences motivation, pleasure, and reinforcement of behaviors. Over time, your brain starts craving that dopamine hit, which makes social media use habit forming and at times even addictive. So, how does social media become addictive? Dopamine does not directly cause addiction. However, the intense surges of dopamine released from the positive social attention hijacks the brain's natural reward system that seeks praise in social media. So, when you're on social media all the time and you kind of wonder, am I becoming addicted to social media or how do people become addicted? It is because we are biologically searching for social connection and because we're community based creatures and because we are constantly interacting with this, it just naturally starts to hijack the natural reward cycles and pathways that the neurotransmitters are being sent through. It's a quick and surefire way to get some kind of dopamine, and for that reason, it is very easily addictive because when you are then interacting with something that makes you feel unhappy, maybe you're sad or have had a bad day at work, you are more likely to go on social media because your brain has already made a correlation between being online and feeling better. Here I've included a social media dopamine loop, so this is just more of a visual explanation of how this happens physiologically. So you have the stimulus, which is social media usage. Likes and notifications trigger pleasure centers that restructure the brain's natural reward system. So you start going online and you start spending hours a day on your phone. Then dopamine is released. Validation is received. Dopamine is released when validation from social media is received, and you start getting lots of nice happy chemicals in your brain because you're having a fun time online, you're ignoring what might be stressing you, um, and your brain is having a quick and promised release of dopamine. Then you get reinforcement of behavior and a desire for more develops because your brain has made a connection that doing this one activity makes you feel better. There's a constant comparison results in lower self-esteem and mood. Information overload results in anxiety and fatigue. So if you're online and your brain has already made a connection, this is something that's going to make you feel good, that when you are online and you see things that make you upset, then there's now moving to the next step, habit formation, where you feel the need to do it again. More dopamine is desired to counteract feelings of unhappiness and discomfort. So then you loop back to the stimulus here, where it's an infinite cycle where you do it, you feel good, and then when you don't feel good, you do it more. So then you never escape this cycle of constantly being on social media because when you're happy, you're on there, and when you're sad, you're on there, and all your brain is getting is that when you do this one activity, the happy chemicals are getting released. So it is very easy, though, dopamine is not inherently addicting. These social media is structured and has been formatted to prey upon dopamine loops, to keep you as long as they possibly can on these loops by preying on the fact that your brain has made a positive cause and effect with these loops. So here's a deeper explanation of the biological pathways of the mind-body connection, understanding the physiological mechanisms linking psychological and physical well-being. So if you know that social media affects your mental health, how is that then in turn affecting your physical body? Because it does. With improper social media usage, mental health conditions like anxiety and depression can manifest. When these conditions arise, they can become ongoing long-term issues that can lead to chemical imbalances in the brain. An example of this would be an individual being bullied online, becoming stuck in a dopamine loop that rewires the brain's natural reward system. The individual develops depression, and then there is a prolonged period where there is a lack of dopamine caused by acquired depression. So this is explaining how maybe if you're upset and you have occasional unhappiness, if you have consistent, prolonged usage of social media, in this case study, for example, that it can then become acquired depression where it's moved away from being situational depression and it's now a chemical imbalance. That it's expanded beyond what it originally was. It was something where if you took away the stimulus, then maybe the depression would go away. And now there's actually something that's chemically developed where your brain isn't responding and making dopamine to things that should make you happy because it's so use independent on social media is making you happy. Obviously, this is a case by case basis. This isn't going to apply to everybody. You can recover from it in some cases. So don't sweat too bad if you find that as you're listening to this that maybe that applies to you. When we look at the body then suffering from the impact of acquired depression in this case, how does this impact the body physically? Dopamine is crucial for regulating motor control, mood, attention, learning, and memory. A chronic lack of dopamine can lead to restless leg syndrome, depression, schizophrenia, ADHD, and Parkinson's disease. So, dopamine is absolutely vital in the body. If you are developing mental health conditions that start impacting neurotransmitters, then you're at an increased likelihood that you're then going to develop some kind of physical ailment because you are suffering from a chemical lack of something that is needed to regulate mood, attention, learning. So you'll see when people who have developed depression maybe from social media usage, that then they struggle to pay attention in class or learn new things or remember dates or times or callbacks to memories. And it's because the usage chronically is actually impacting when their body's releasing dopamine. And dopamine isn't as simple as, oh, you're happy or you're not. It is literally directly connected to motor control, mood, attention. So you'll see, not in every case, but in extreme cases, the development of being more predisposed to cases like schizophrenia, ADHD. And I just want to preface this, if you're curious, you can check out both of these links, citations down there for where this evidence comes from. Obviously, if you've developed or acquired depression from some kind of social media usage, it doesn't mean that you're going to develop Parkinson's. It just means that, as an example for this case study, that if you are already genetically predisposed to having a family history of Parkinson's, and then on top of it, say from improper social media usage, you've acquired depression, it increases your likelihood of then going on to develop Parkinson's because your brain's already at a deficit on top of already being genetically more likely to experience that as a biological mind-body connection between the lack of dopamine. So that's that for that one. And that leads me to one of my favorite quotes. Too much of anything is bad, technology included. So just like for all those conditions and being predisposed to certain ones other than others because of a lack of specific neurochemical transmitters, if you have too much of them, it's bad. And if you have too few, it is bad. So the moral of the story is everything in regulation, and that is what's going to help both your mind and physical body, absolutely prosper and do well. So, real life filter, the reality behind perfect posts and why they're so alluring. So, with all that in mind, on knowing how chemically social media is impacting your physical and mental body, why are we so into it then? If we know now from what we learned previously in the slides that it's so horribly bad for us, why is it so fun to go on social media then and like see what your family's posting or stalk what even people you dislike? Why is that so fun then? Why do we keep doing it? When using social media, there is a highlight reel effect on users. Users subconsciously compare themselves to others' best curated moments. Humans are naturally community seeking creatures, so the action of observing, judging, and assessing others on social media makes sense when it is an evolved feature that they have adapted in order to comprehend how to better fit in socially. In effect, there's a direct impact on self image, self worth, and mental health because their comparison follows users even when they are not on social media. This is This is especially prominent in youth because their developing minds are especially susceptible to dopamine loops and validation from external sources. So, there's your explanation there. You are already, and it's not the fault of every individual. It is the fact that these apps and social media are specifically targeting the fact that people and humans are social creatures and that it is innately an evolved habit to desire to observe, judge, and assess others in order to fit in. Because, for example, in caveman times, if you didn't fit in and you weren't a part of a pack, you probably weren't going to have an easy go of it and say you might not survive the winter. We are still, that's still our ancestors. So we have evolved to know that if I fit in and I get along with everybody, and I'm still stalking social media to understand what is popular, what's cool, what's not cool, then that means when I go hang out with people in person, I'm going to know what to do and what not to do. And that's based on the desire to fit in. And so if you combine that with the fact that you're now also have a dopamine loop, you're doing something that you've evolved to do, and then at the same time you are literally chemically linked to the habit. You've evolved to want to do it, and then on top of it, your brain has wired that out of necessity chemically, but also socially, it is something that you feel the need to do. Otherwise, your body cannot comprehend why you wouldn't be doing it. So that's why it is so alluring, especially for youth who are so susceptible, because their brains are just starting out developing, right? So it makes sense that to a developing brain, they're getting these even higher hits of dopamine, more than an adult, which, if you are interested in the wonderful citation I've put down here, it really does do a wonderful deep dive if you're interested into just how deep the impact runs for youth and adults, and why we feel the need to continually do something even if we know it's bad for us. It's because socially you need it to survive, almost in a way, even if technically you don't, and even to the detriment of your own physical health. With that, I lead you to comparison is the thief of joy. Um, Even though we've evolved to do it to fit in socially, and or if there's a chemical loop of dopamine that's linking you to it, constantly comparing yourself to other people will not bring you any joy. It becomes miserable because then you just keep replaying it in your brain. It's doing that in an effort to try and process and understand why it is the way that it is, or what you're doing is or isn't good enough. It makes sense why we do it. Is it in any way productive to a point? No, it becomes a point where it's actually detrimental to your mental and physical health, because there's no new information to process. It just becomes torturous because your brain is replaying um, information that's not necessarily needed or valuable. Here I've included a wonderful statistics panel from Statistics Canada 2024. This is the impact of social media use on users. So here is just a quick little glance. They pulled on people. These are all, some of them mental, some of them physical. Shockingly, I thought less physical activity impacting the physical body, impacting your cardiovascular health, um, impacting everything and anything is feeling envious, feeling frustrated, anxious, or feeling frustrated, angry, feeling anxious, depressed, trouble concentrating, lost sleep. Physical activity and lost sleep are the big two here that when you start losing things like this, something's got to give. You're going to start to see your physical body start to manifest physical symptoms if mentally your brain is not getting what it needs because it cannot function well across the board if something is lacking. And that leads me to mental signs and symptoms, the mental toll of harmful social media habits. So I have different categories here from youth, teen, and adult. Youth ages 6 to 12, you have increased irritability or mood swings when not using devices, difficulty concentrating on schoolwork or tasks, inexplicably upset, anxiety when separated from devices or unable to access social media, and withdrawal from online school activities. So for youth, because they don't have the ability to articulate why they are feeling what they are, they just don't feel good, and they don't know why. So that's why you'll see increased irritability, including mood swings, or inexplicably upset, especially anxiety when separated from the devices. They don't know that there's a connection between the two. They just know that when they're not doing it, they don't feel good, and they don't know how to tell you that. So mentally, they're upset, they're not sure why. That's how they're going to be displaying it. For teens, feelings of anxiety or depression often linked to likes, comments, or online validation, social media comparison and envy regarding appearance, achievements, or lifestyle, fear of missing out, irritability, anger, or frustration after online interactions, and reduced face to face social interactions. So, especially with teens, for mental signs, improper social media use to the point where there's mental symptoms of suffering, you'll especially isolation. These are people that, you know, ages 13 to 18 have the capacity to articulate what's wrong, but not. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. They don't know how to articulate it, even if they could. They just know that they don't feel good, and it's probably kind of embarrassing. Um, so you'll see a lot of isolation, reduced face to face interactions, and especially fear of missing out is a big one, um, where it's difficult to vocalize that you don't feel a part of something without feeling needy. So then, of course, then you start getting anxiety and depression and social comparisons. Adults, you have anxiety, stress related to work, social expectations online, depression and low mood, sleep disturbances, including insomnia or delayed sleep onset, difficulty focusing at work or in daily responsibilities, emotional burnout or exhaustion. So these are in development at this point. You know how to articulate why you're feeling and probably why. However, you are going to see mental manifestations of your brain's displeasure with what it is currently experiencing. So you're going to see low mood, anxiety, depression, and a big one for adults is sleep disturbances, and or difficulty focusing. Um, so, yeah, that leads us to physical symptoms. Just as I said previously, if you are at a point where your brain isn't really sure what's happening or isn't getting what it needs, um, then you are going to see the mental symptoms manifest into physical symptoms. Um, it's it's strange because you don't see anything physically maybe going on because they're not as well known. But if you are suffering mentally, then eventually you're going to start to see the presentation of physical symptoms. So for youth, this would be things like sleep disturbances, fidgeting or restlessness, tummy aches or stomach discomfort, clumsiness or reduced coordination, changes in appetite and reduced physical activity. A big one that I think is super, super catchy here is the tummy aches or stomach discomfort. Again, too young to articulate maybe why they're feeling or what they're feeling, but you'll see like maybe before going to school or not being able to take like a tablet into a restaurant that suddenly there's a tummy ache, it's from the anxiety. Or especially a big one is clumsiness, reduced coordination, is that less practice with physical play leads to a decreased ability with hand-eye coordination and fine motor skills. That is a big one. That is super important that kids are getting that. And if they're not, then it might be a sign that they're maybe spending too much time online or playing on tablets. For teens, you have weight changes, sleep disturbances, eye strain, neck, shoulder, or back pain, and headaches. Um, this is all overexhaustion, spending too much time on social media. Eventually, you'll see the manifestation of symptoms like this, where too much of anything is bad, and especially social media will start to lead to symptoms like this. In adults, you'll see gastrointestinal issues, sleep problems, eye strain, dry eyes, neck, shoulder, back pain, headaches, tension, migraines, and reduced physical activity or sedentary behavior. So that's very similar to teens. The major differences that you'll see in adults is that they're better at hiding it. So usually it's almost similar to toddlers in the way that the gastrointestinal issues will always make an appearance, and that's kind of where that you'll hear that listen to your gut expression is because if you do not feel good, suddenly your tummy doesn't feel very good either. It's because you are anxious. It's because your body is sending signals to your stomach that, hey, something isn't right. I don't feel good. Um, and that's a big one alongside the sleep problems, which you'll see in every category. Is like the point of sleep is for your brain to process information and to decode and descramble everything that you learned and experienced that day. If you're not giving your brain the time to decompress and process, and instead are packing on more for it to process, then you're going to start to see, especially, signs of strain and fatigue physically. So, this is all horrible and sad and a little bit frightening. How can we fix this? Take control of your feed, protect your mind and body, creating healthy digital habits. So, what can you do? Curating your feed is a fantastic and easy way to take control of your feed. By maximizing your digital wellness, you can promote your overall mental and physical health. Unfollow or block content that drains you, set screen time boundaries, practice mindful scrolling, and take dopamine breaks, tech free moments. When using social media, make sure to take pauses, breathe, and reflect on the emotions the content invokes in you. Prioritize your health by being the boss of the content on your devices. So, I think for this one, it's very important to recognize that it's your device, and what you see on it and how it makes you feel is up to you. So, do not let the content control you. You control the device, you control the content. This is daunting. Where do I start? Make one small change today, is my advice. Mute, unfollow, block, or limit app use and settings on your phone. I cannot stress this enough. Even one small step is a good step. Um, Especially a great first step I would highly recommend is limiting app use and settings on your phone. You can go in through the settings and limit how much time a day you're spending on each app. And on that, it also tracks how much time on a regular day-to-day and weekly basis you're spending on social media apps. I think it's great because it gives a visual demonstration into actually how much time you're there. And it's a great first step in learning how to take control of your usage and dopamine loops and all of that stuff that was mentioned earlier. Um, just as we're wrapping up here, I wanted to include a Stay Connected, Stay Well mental health resource. So, all of these are mental health resources that if you feel you or someone you know or care about needs, these are mental health resources available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have the Canadian Mental Health Association, Suicide Crisis Helpline, Kids Help Phone, and Hope for Wellness Helpline for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. These are all available anytime. Absolutely great resources if you or somebody you know you feel needs them. Just while we're here and on the mention of resources, we have the Mental Health in the Digital Age Lab, researching holistic well-being and digital flourishing across the lifespan. These are the wonderful people that had me here today doing this project. And so if you're wondering how to take that first step in the right direction, I highly recommend this. There's an Instagram for Teens, website, LinkedIn, and on here there's free seminars, free webinars where you can ask questions. There's free resources and toolkits that show you step by step how to block people, unmute, mute, unfollow, less time on your phone, anything and everything under the sun, step by step, easy to understand instructions. And it's all free. Every Wednesday, there's a Wellness Wednesday on different topics, including mental health and digital well being. Highly recommend. Absolutely great and absolutely free, which I think is just an incredible resource to have in this day and age. And while on the topic of the digital lab, I would like to do a special thanks to Dr. Jennifer Lafayette and Madison Wesley for having me here today and letting me do this presentation. They are the wonderful geniuses behind the Mental Health in the Digital Age Lab, and I would just love to say thanks to them quickly before I wrap this up. Just for the entire project and all the support thus far. Here I've included my resources that were used throughout the entirety of this project if anybody's actually interested in reading where this peer-reviewed sources came from. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed. Have a wonderful mental health day.